Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Charles Tipshirani. I represent the Mex Loans in Mexico. We lend money to foreigners to purchase real estate in Mexico, and without a doubt, we are your best option to do so. As a matter of fact, we have a unconditional guarantee that we are the best. If you find a better deal elsewhere, we will definitely improve it and give you a better rate and a better conditions. So, mexloans.com.mx, your best option to borrow money to purchase real estate in Mexico. While talking to clients that are interested in purchasing property in Mexico, they keep asking us a lot of questions about real estate and taxes and accounting, and they're thinking of moving to Mexico. They're considering buying in Mexico, and they have a lot of questions, and we're really not, the right people to ask. You should be asking the experts. So it's our mission to find you the experts about the topics that concern you, that you might find interesting, and we will interview them on a regular basis, ask them questions, and at the end, if you have any questions that you want to ask the person that we're interviewing, just write to us and we'll get the answers for you. The object here is to get you to feel comfortable about moving, investing in Mexico, and of course, if you need to borrow money, consider borrowing from Mex Loans. Today I have with me Victoria Carrillo. Am I pronouncing that right?
Carrillo.
Carrillo. Victoria Carrillo. That's another thing you have to learn about Mexico is the
Rolling R's.
The little accents, the little terms. Victoria Carrillo, who represents Mextax. Victoria, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Before we start about Mextax, tell me a bit about yourself. What brought you to Mexico?
I'm from Monterrey, Mexico, and I decided to move to Cancun 6 years ago because I wanted to live close to the beach.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't think it was possible, but I did want to get a corporate job or an office job, but being close to the beach. And 3 years ago, I started working at Mextax, and I started as customer service, then customer service manager, then operating manager, and now I've been named a chief operating officer just a month ago.
Congratulations. And I hear you're the first female chief operating officer of Mextax.
Yes.
Good. Congratulations. That's
Thank
good
you.
to hear.
Mextax, it's a Canadian, Mexican-based accounting firm. We have locations in Mérida and Playa del Carmen. We're a team of almost 20 accountants, and we specialize in helping foreigners comply with their Mexican tax obligations. So we help both Mexican-based corporations and Mexican citizens or Mexican residents. If you're a foreigner with a Mexican residency, we also assist with individual taxes. Well, first of all, I would recommend clients to write us and schedule a consultation. We offer 30-minute consultation. And in this consultation, you'll get all of your questions answered. And what we need to first identify is if you're considered a tax resident of Mexico or not. By just having a Mexican residency, temporary or permanent, doesn't make you a tax resident of Mexico.
So that's a good point.
Exactly. So it's best if you schedule a consultation, give us a brief background of your current situation, and we can help you identify if you're considered a tax resident of Mexico or not.
Well, what is the criteria for being a tax resident? I mean, I appreciate the consultation and all, but what should I be thinking about if I'm retiring? We're going to deal with vacationers and investors and workers. So let's start with the retirees. What does a retiree need to consider if he's a tax resident or not in Mexico?
Well, the fiscal code tells us that in Mexico you're considered a tax resident if this is where you've established your home. So if this is where you've established your home, but maybe you also have home in Canada or house property in US, for example, then we get to the second option, which is identifying if your center of vital interest is located in Mexico. So in Mexico, you are taxed based on where the source of income is. So if you're making income from Mexican source, Mexican based, if you have a property in Mexico that is that you're putting it for rent, if you're doing Airbnb, this is Mexican sourced income. So for sure you're gonna have to pay taxes. That now this
Only on that income.
exactly. This doesn't make you a tax resident of Mexico, but this type of activity is taxed in Mexico.
If I'm a resident in Mexico, I'm retired, I reside in Mexico, it's my permanent residency, and I earn income from abroad. I earn income from Canada or the US. Do I have to pay taxes on that income in Mexico?
If you are considered a tax resident of Mexico, then yes, you'll need to declare that income here in Mexico. Now, we will have to see if there's a treaty that we can apply to maybe lower that tax, or if there's a limit to the tax rate that you need to pay in Mexico. But we'll have to identify on the treaty between your country of residence, US, Canada, or maybe a country in Europe, and Mexico, and see if we can lower the tax. But yes, if you're considered a tax resident of Mexico, you'll need to report based on your worldwide income.
So now, let's say I'm an investor and I want to live in my home country, but I want to travel, invest, and buy real estate in Mexico and rent it. Should I pay taxes in Mexico on that rental income?
Since this property is located in Mexico, this is considered Mexican sourced income, so you need to pay taxes on this. You need to report it and pay taxes in Mexico.
Should I pay taxes in my home country as well?
Yes, you should. Now, your accountants will tell you if there's a treaty that can be applied to maybe lower the tax rate, or at least, of course, get avoid the double taxation. Well, we'll need to identify if they're considered a tax resident of Mexico. To be a tax resident of Mexico, first you need your Mexican residency so that you can spend here longer than 183 days. Consecutive, that's right. If you spend here longer than 183 days, and this is where you've established your home, you're considered a tax resident of Mexico, and you need to report that income as well.
Okay. So now, if I get my residency visa and I live in Mexico, and I earn income from abroad, whether it's through the internet or a salary that I receive from an employer in another country, I need to pay taxes on that income in Mexico.
That's right.
Okay, so tax residency is the key here. So you need to identify whether you're a tax resident or not.
That's right.
Good.
Yeah. Well, after you've obtained your Mexican residency, I would say the first step is to obtain your RFC number.
RFC, what's that?
The RFC is the Mexican tax ID. And this Mexican tax ID is given to Mexican citizens, Mexican residents, temporary or permanent, and Mexican corporations. You can obtain this tax ID number with SAT, which is the Mexican Tax Authorities, with SAT, and you obtain it through an appointment. So you get an appointment with SAT, obtain your tax ID number, and with this tax ID number, you can register the economic activity that you're going to have.
Okay.
So first thing is obtaining RFC, and to that RFC number, you'll register whatever activity is that you're developing in Mexico.
Okay. And do you help us with that, with
Yes.
the RFC? Obtaining RFC? Okay. So RFC is like your social insurance number in Canada and the US.
That's right, yeah.
Good. All right. So now I've obtained my RFC. How often do we need to declare income in Mexico?
Well, it depends on the activity that you're going to do. For example, if you have a Mexican corporation, Mexican corporations are required to file taxes on a monthly basis. So the fiscal year runs from January through December. Every month you need to file a tax declaration, and an annual tax filing for corporations is due in March. For individuals, we will need to identify what your activity is. If you're only receiving pension, then you'll only have to do the annual tax filing. But if you're doing an ongoing activity where you're receiving maybe a salary or you're receiving monthly income, then you'll need to report it on a monthly basis.
Okay. It's just like a corporation.
Just like a corporation, yeah, but the annual tax filing for individuals is due in April. It's all based on the activity that you develop in Mexico. For example, if you're doing rental activity in Mexico, it's anything related to that economic activity. So electricity, water, phone, internet bills, HOA, maintenance, gardening, furniture, absolutely anything that is related to that economic activity, you're able to deduct as long as you have a factura. Factura is the official invoice here in Mexico.
It's like an invoice.
It's like an invoice, but it's an electronic bill that it's sent from one taxpayer to another taxpayer. Okay, it's issued by the tax authority, so they can track these expenses that you have.
And that's the only way you can deduct
Exactly.
expenses. You need the factura.
You need a factura if you want to deduct expenses. Receipts are non-deductible, and cash expenses above 2,000 pesos are not deductible as well.
Okay, so I can pay cash expenses under 2,000, but above 2,000 I cannot.
You cannot, but you also need a factura for those cash expenses.
Okay, thank you very much for that answer, Vicky. Now I own real estate and I rent it out. I rent out the real estate, I make income on that property. How often do I need to report that income and pay taxes on that income?
Every month. If it's an ongoing activity that you're doing in Mexico, you need to report it every month.
Every month.
Now, it depends also what type of activity you're developing. For example, if you're doing rental through Airbnb, VRBO, Booking, these platforms have a specific way to be taxed. It's called plataformas tecnológicas or digital platforms. So this is a specific way that we should do the accounting, and it's in the tax rates as well.
Wait, I don't understand. So you mean they pay our taxes for us? They collect the taxes or what?
In some cases, they do. So
The sales tax,
the sale, yeah,
but not the income tax.
income tax as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So digital platforms, if you are earning less than 300,000 pesos a year and you have an RFC number as an individual, when you register it on the platform withholds a 4% of income tax and an 8% of sales tax. So if your earnings are less than 300,000 pesos a year, you don't have the obligation of filing any other monthly tax filings, for example, after they've retained these percentages.
For more than 300,000, what happens?
If you're over the 300,000, they continue to withhold the 4% of income tax and 8% of sales tax, but you are now responsible for doing the rest of the tax calculation. So you do need this monthly tax filing. With the help of an accountant, we can help you identify the tax rate that you need to pay for income tax and sales tax as well.
That's very interesting. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So what if I don't rent through a platform?
If you're doing long-term rental, for example, then there's something called Reciclo, which is very attractive. It's a tax regime that is for individuals that earn less than 3.5 million pesos a year. Total, that's right. The income tax in this tax regime, Reciclo, is from a 1% to a 2.5% of income tax. Tax rate is very low.
Okay.
So if you're doing long-term rental, then you could apply for Reciclo, for example. If you're doing digital platforms, if you're doing Airbnb, unfortunately, you cannot do Reciclo. It's not compatible. But this is where we suggest scheduling a consultation so that we can identify what the best option is for you. Capital gains tax is 35% on the profit or 25% on the total sale. If you're selling your primary residency, you can prove this is your primary residency by having a utility bill under your name, an electricity bill under your name. And if you have your Mexican residency and an RFC number, you can deduct up to $200,000 US dollars in capital gains tax.
Oh, that's interesting. So I need an RFC, I need a utility bill, and I need a residency in Mexico, residency visa.
This is how you prove that this is your primary residency, and you can exempt up to $200,000 US dollars in capital gains. It's around 200,000.
All right, so let's assuming that I don't have a visa and I don't have a RFC number. Is it investment property that I'm just selling either to buy another one or I'm bringing the money back to my home country? How will I be taxed on that sale?
It's 35% on the profit, but with the help of the notary that it's assisting you in the sale of the property, you can look at different tax exemption and tax deductions that you can apply. We offer accounting services for individuals and legal entities in Mexico. We offer consulting services as well. And we also offer payroll services for
good.
individuals and also for legal entities. If you have employees, we can help you run the payroll.
Thank you very much, Vicky. That was very interesting. Well, I hope you enjoyed this interview with Vicky Carrillo from Mextax. We're trying to provide you with as much information as possible to help you make an intelligent and reflected decision on if you want to move to Mexico, buy in Mexico, invest in Mexico. We're here to assist you. If you need to borrow money, Mex Loans is here to lend you money to purchase real estate in Mexico. If you have any other suggestions, you have questions that you want us to develop for future broadcasts, write to us at contact@mexloans.com.mx, and we'll consider your suggestions and we'll definitely look into it and provide you with as much information as possible. Thank you very much for joining us.